I never thought love could cost this much, not just in money, but in self-respect. When I met Ethan, he felt like everything I had been missing. He listened, he remembered small details, and he spoke about the future as if I was already part of it. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Loving him felt natural, safe, and real. At that time, I was stable in life. I had savings I worked years for, long hours, missed vacations, and sacrifices no one ever saw. Ethan knew this. He knew how hard I had worked to build security for myself. When he talked about his plans and how one push could change everything, I didn't hear risk. I heard hope. I heard us. Giving him the money wasn't sudden. It was a decision built on trust, late-night talks, and promises whispered when the world felt quiet. I told myself this was what partners do. They support each other. They believe in each other when no one else does. I thought I was investing in a shared future. What I didn't expect was how quickly everything shifted. The warmth faded. Conversations became short. I felt like I was slowly being pushed out of a life I helped build. Still, I stayed quiet, afraid that speaking up would make me seem ungrateful or controlling. I kept telling myself love requires patience. Then came the moment that broke something inside me. Standing there, surrounded by people, hearing him speak about me as if I was nothing more than an embarrassment. The laughter, the looks, the silence that followed. I wanted to disappear. I had never felt so small, so exposed, so foolish. In that instant, I understood something clearly. This wasn't a mistake. This was who he really was. The man I loved didn't exist the way I thought he did. I walked away that day carrying shame, heartbreak, and a truth that hurt more than the loss itself. Trusting him didn't just change my life. It changed how I saw love forever. I met Ethan at a time when my life felt heavy and uncertain. I was going through long days that drained me and quiet nights where I questioned my direction. I wasn't looking for love, just some peace, but he walked in and slowly became both. He had a calm way of talking, like he wasn't in a rush to impress anyone. That made me feel seen. He showed interest in my thoughts, not just my stories. When I spoke, he listened without interrupting. When I doubted myself, he encouraged me. He remembered things I mentioned casually and brought them up later, which made me feel valued. Around him, I didn't feel like I had to explain my emotions. He seemed to understand them naturally. Ethan talked a lot about goals. Not in a flashy way, but in a steady, confident tone. He spoke about work, growth, and building something meaningful. What drew me in was how often he used the word we. He didn't describe a future that only included him. He placed me in it without hesitation, like it was already decided. Our connection grew faster than I expected. Conversations stretched late into the night. We shared fears, disappointments, and dreams we hadn't told anyone else. He told me I made him feel focused and grounded. I told him he made me feel hopeful again. It felt balanced, like we were lifting each other instead of leaning too hard. For the first time in a long while, I felt safe emotionally. I wasn't second-guessing every word or action. I trusted his consistency, his presence, and the way he showed up when things got difficult. Being with him felt easy, and that ease made me let my guard down. I truly believed I had found someone who wanted to grow with me, not take from me. Someone who saw partnership as teamwork, not advantage. At that point, love didn't feel risky. It felt like home. A few months into our relationship, Ethan started talking about a business idea he was deeply confident in. He explained it calmly, with details that sounded well thought out. He said the timing was critical and that opportunities like this don't wait. I could see excitement in his eyes, mixed with stress. He wasn't asking for sympathy, just understanding. He told me he had tried every option but still fell short. Banks wanted time. Investors wanted control. What he needed was someone who believed in him, someone willing to stand beside him when it mattered most. When he looked at me while saying that, I felt like he wasn't just talking about money. He was talking about trust. I asked questions. He answered them without hesitation. He showed me plans, projections, and explained how this step could change our lives. He said this was the foundation for the future we talked about so often. A future with stability, shared goals, and freedom from constant worry. I didn't decide overnight. I spent days thinking, calculating, and replaying our conversations. That money wasn't easy to part with. It represented years of discipline and sacrifice. But I told myself love isn't just about feelings. Sometimes it's about action. When I finally agreed, it felt like a promise, not a transaction. I wasn't giving him money to save him. I was supporting a shared vision. I believed that if we were building a life together, then this was part of it. I liquidated my savings quietly. I didn't tell friends or family because I didn't want opinions to shake my confidence. I handed him the full amount with faith, not fear. He thanked me, held my hands, and told me he would never forget what I did for him. At that moment, I felt proud, not anxious. I believed this sacrifice would bring us closer and that one day we would look back and say it was worth it. I had no idea that decision would become the turning point of everything that followed. After the money was gone, things didn't change all at once. At first, it was small enough to ignore. Messages took longer to get replies. Calls felt rushed. When we spent time together, his attention seemed elsewhere, like his body was present but his mind wasn't. I told myself he was just busy. He started guarding his phone closely. If I asked how work was going, his answers were short and unclear. The detailed conversations we once had were replaced with vague statements. Whenever I asked for updates, he sighed, as if I was adding pressure instead of showing care. I noticed expenses that didn't make sense. Money moved quickly, but results didn't show. When I asked about it, he told me I didn't understand how business worked. He said I was overthinking and creating problems where there were none. His tone made me feel embarrassed for even asking. Late nights became common. He always had a reason: meetings, calls, unexpected work. I wanted to trust him, but something felt off. When I tried to express how I felt, he turned it around on me. He said I was being insecure and unsupportive, that stress was making him distant and I should be more patient. Slowly, I started questioning myself. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was expecting too much. I reminded myself that I chose to believe in him and that doubt would only damage what we had. I didn't want to be the person who stood in the way of his progress. Each time I swallowed my concerns, a small part of me felt uneasy. But I ignored that feeling. I convinced myself love meant trusting even when it felt uncomfortable. Looking back, the signs were there, clear and constant. I just wasn't ready to see them yet. The gathering was supposed to be a happy moment. His family wanted to celebrate how well things were going for him, and I was invited as part of that picture. I wore a simple outfit and told myself to stay calm and supportive. I didn't expect praise or attention. I just wanted the night to pass peacefully. At first, everything felt normal. People laughed, shared food, and talked about plans. Then someone mentioned how far Ethan had come in such a short time. That's when he smiled in a way I didn't recognize. Instead of thanking those who supported him, he looked at me and laughed. He said it casually, like a joke. He told everyone I was overly attached and desperate, that I had tried to buy his loyalty. He claimed I used money to control him, not help him. His words were sharp, but his tone was relaxed, like this was harmless entertainment. The room went quiet. No one laughed. No one interrupted. I felt every eye turned toward me, waiting for a reaction I didn't have the strength to give. My chest tightened, and my face burned. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but my voice wouldn't come out. He kept going for a moment, clearly enjoying the attention. Each sentence made me feel smaller. I wasn't just being insulted. I was being rewritten into someone I wasn't, in front of people who mattered to him. I stood there frozen, realizing he wasn't embarrassed at all. He wasn't angry either. He was comfortable humiliating me. That realization hurt more than the words themselves. I excused myself quietly and stepped outside. The air felt heavy, and my hands were shaking. I didn't cry right away. I just stood there, trying to understand how someone I trusted could strip me of dignity so easily. That night, something broke beyond repair. It wasn't just my heart. It was the image I had of him, of us, of the love I thought we shared. After that night, I needed answers. I couldn't ignore the feeling that something much bigger was being hidden from me. I didn't confront him right away. I started paying attention to details I once brushed aside. Receipts, locations, stories that didn't line up. The truth didn't come all at once. It revealed itself slowly, piece by piece, until it was impossible to deny. I learned the money hadn't gone where I was told it had. There was no progress to show, no real work behind it. Instead, it had paid for dinners I never attended, trips I was never invited on, and gifts I never received. Everything pointed to one name that kept appearing again and again, Vanessa Cole. She wasn't a business contact. She wasn't a client. She was someone he was trying to impress. The lifestyle he showed her was built on what I gave him. Every moment of comfort she enjoyed came from my sacrifice. Realizing that made my stomach turn. When I finally asked him directly, he didn't panic. He didn't lie. He didn't even pretend to feel sorry. He looked at me with a calm expression and told me the truth without emotion. He said I had helped him when he needed it. That I served my purpose. Then he said something I will never forget. He told me I was useful at the time. Nothing more. No apology. No explanation. Just that word, spoken so casually, like I was a tool he no longer needed. I felt numb. Not angry. Not even shocked. Just empty. The person standing in front of me felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. In that moment, I understood that the betrayal wasn't just about another woman or stolen money. It was about how little I meant to him all along. I walked away without raising my voice. There was nothing left to say. The truth had already said everything for him. After walking away from him, everything felt heavy and silent. The noise of what had happened stayed in my head, repeating over and over. I didn't feel strong or relieved. I felt empty. My confidence disappeared, replaced by questions I couldn't escape. I started blaming myself for everything. I told myself I should have known better. I replayed every conversation, every moment where something felt wrong, and I chose to ignore it. I wondered why I trusted so easily and why I believed words without demanding proof. Each memory felt like a reminder of my failure. The financial loss hurt, but the emotional damage cut deeper. I felt foolish for sacrificing so much for someone who never respected me. I questioned my judgment, my intelligence, and even my value as a person. I avoided mirrors because I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. Sleep became difficult. Nights were the worst. My mind wouldn't slow down, and silence made everything louder. I thought about how I let someone define my worth and how quickly he discarded me once he got what he wanted. I withdrew from people. I didn't want sympathy or advice. I didn't know how to explain the pain without feeling ashamed. I convinced myself that everyone would see me the way he did, weak and naive. At my lowest point, I felt completely alone. I had lost money, trust, and the sense of security I once had. I wondered if I would ever feel normal again or if this experience had permanently broken something inside me. But even in that darkness, there was a small part of me that refused to disappear. It wasn't hope yet. It was just survival. And that quiet strength, barely noticeable at the time, was the beginning of something I didn't understand yet, but desperately needed. After reaching that low point, I made a quiet decision. I would not beg for explanations or closure. I would not give him the satisfaction of seeing my pain again. Silence became my shield. I stopped calling, stopped texting, and stopped reacting to anything connected to him. Instead, I focused on facts. I went through bank statements, emails, and transaction records carefully. I organized everything, step by step, without emotion. Each document helped me see the situation clearly, not as a personal failure, but as a series of choices he made. That clarity gave me a sense of control I thought I had lost. I learned how to protect myself legally and financially. I asked questions, took notes, and followed advice. I didn't rush. I didn't act out of anger. I wanted every move to be calm and intentional. At the same time, I turned inward. I started rebuilding parts of myself that had been neglected. I worked more hours, created structure in my days, and set small goals I could actually reach. Each completed task, no matter how small, helped restore my confidence. Emotionally, I set boundaries. I stopped replaying conversations in my head. When thoughts about him surfaced, I redirected my focus. I reminded myself that healing didn't require forgiveness or confrontation. It required distance and consistency. Mentally, I became stronger by choosing discipline over emotion. I learned to sit with discomfort without letting it control me. Progress was slow, but it was real. What looked like silence from the outside was actually preparation. I wasn't disappearing. I was rebuilding. And without him realizing it, the power he once had over me was fading every single day. When everything was in place, I moved forward carefully. There were no emotional messages, no public accusations, and no dramatic confrontations. I followed proper steps and let the process speak for itself. Every action I took was calm, measured, and supported by evidence. Ethan didn't see it coming. He was too busy believing he had won. Slowly, doors began to close for him. Conversations he expected to go well suddenly ended early. Plans he counted on stopped moving forward. His confidence started to crack as questions were raised that he couldn't answer easily. I stayed out of sight. I didn't watch closely or wait for updates. I focused on my own routine while things unfolded in the background. I didn't feel joy in seeing his image fall apart. What I felt was relief. The weight I had been carrying for so long was finally lifting. There were moments when I thought about speaking out, telling my side loudly. But I chose not to. I didn't need approval or sympathy. The truth was already doing its work. Silence continued to protect my peace. As his world grew smaller, mine began to stabilize. I regained confidence in my decisions and trust in my ability to stand on my own. I didn't feel the urge to look back or check where he was. That chapter no longer deserved my attention. Justice didn't arrive with applause or recognition. It came quietly, through consequences that couldn't be argued away. And in that calm resolution, I realized something important. Revenge doesn't have to be loud or cruel. Sometimes, it's simply moving forward while the person who hurt you is forced to face the results of their own actions. Looking back now, I see how much I've changed. Losing Ethan, losing the money, and losing trust in someone I loved forced me to grow in ways I never expected. I didn't just lose $100,000, I lost illusions about love, about people, and about what it means to give yourself fully to someone else. That loss was painful, but it was also necessary. I've learned to value myself first, to set boundaries, and to trust my instincts. I know now that love should never cost your dignity, your sense of self, or your safety. It shouldn't demand sacrifices that leave you empty while benefiting only the other person. That realization took time, and it came through the hardest lessons imaginable. I also learned that strength doesn't come from confrontation or revenge that makes noise. Strength comes from quiet rebuilding, from taking control of your own life, and from refusing to let someone else define your worth. Watching Ethan face the consequences of his actions without me having to act out in anger was its own form of justice. My peace became my power. I've become independent in every sense. Financially, I've regained what I lost and built stability that cannot be shaken by anyone else. Emotionally, I've learned to process betrayal and hurt without letting them control me. Mentally, I am calmer, more focused, and less prone to doubt my own judgment. The pain is still a part of me, but it no longer defines me. It is a reminder of what I endured and what I overcame. I don't dwell on what could have been or mourn the person I thought I loved. Instead, I focus on the woman I have become, stronger, wiser, and free from illusions that once blinded me. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away from my story, it's this: love should lift you, not break you. Protect yourself, trust wisely, and remember that revenge doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes, the quiet triumph of reclaiming your life is the most satisfying victory of all.